In today's episode of The Rise, we sit down with Mike Annunziata, founder and managing partner of Also Capital, a conviction-led venture firm backing hard tech founders at inception. Early career at Soros Fund Management, and early investing experience as a partner at Dorm Room Fund, and later a scout for Caffeinated Capital, Mike began angel investing in 2018, backing frontier founders across space, nuclear, and advanced AI. Today, he sits as a board member at Varda Space Industries with early conviction investments in Radiant Nuclear and Northwood Space, among others. And in this episode, speaks through raising his Fund 1 and what it takes to build a hard tech firm with real gravity today. Hope you enjoy. Mike, thank you so much for coming on The Rise as an early guest here.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm very excited. I think we have a couple of things that we'll chat through today. You just told me that you're the father of three girls under 5 years old.
I am.
How old are they? And how do you manage?
Let's see. So oldest is 4.5. She turns 5 in December. Middle one recently turned 2, and my youngest is 8 weeks.
8 weeks.
3 girls at home. And how do I manage? Patience. Patience. Yeah, very supportive wife, family. I think just grateful.
Bless it.
It's a blessing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. I think one of the reasons that I really like the idea of having you on as an early guest is you just have a really unique path into venture. I think there's a lot of managers out there who grew up at Sequoia or Index and they spun out into their own firm. There's founder super angels out there that got some really great deals done on the angel side that started their own firm. There's not a lot of folks who have had the end-to-end exposure and experience that you bring. And what I mean by that is started out exposure-wise, spent time at Soros, went over to Cornell where you allocated well over $1 billion, went and did your own company, Farther Farms, and now you're founding Also Capital. So I feel like you're one of probably quite a short list to have seen the LP side, the operating side, and now the GP side. Curious with that path, can you just walk me through like what drew you to the next opportunity for each one of those?
It's funny. I'm a bit of a self-described odd duck when it comes to a person starting an early stage venture firm. But I think if you look at, and I had a chance to look at from my time on the LP side, some of the most generational firms that people think of were doing something odd, or the GP had a little bit of an odd, different background early on. And I think it's because it forces a different perspective, forces you to think in unique ways in order to compete. And you kind of create your own path. That's very much what I've done for the better part of especially the last decade now. It was kind of like creating my own path. I think the common through line is prioritizing spending time with great people that are smarter than me.
Yeah.
That's the common theme. I think whether it's starting at Soros as the note taker in the private equity meetings, learning from some of the elite investment talent that was there, or working at the Cornell Endowment, backing top tier investment managers and learning from top tier capital allocators.
Totally.
Starting my own company and licensing out technology from Cornell University, one of the top food science programs, which is what we were doing.
Interesting.
There, and some of the folks that were invested in and on the board of that company, very senior in the agribusiness world, and learned a ton from them. I think all of that really just taught me, I got to live the axiom of never be the smartest person in the room. Always try to surround yourself with people smarter than yourself, and just ask good questions and be curious and learn. And I think that behavior is what led me to here.
I love it. And I can confidently say that I'm not the smartest person in this room. So I'm doing it right.
Well, certainly not me. So it might be our friend over there helping with the podcast.
Shout out to Matt. Absolutely. So I want to go through Also Capital. You have 14 companies in your Fund 1. And I want to mention a couple before you started also in Varda, where you hold a board seat today, and Radiant. Also see that you're wearing a K2 hat. So I love that. And then Northwood out of also, right? Like those are some absolute top companies in the category. Can you just walk me through, like, can we start actually with Northwood? What drew you to the founder? What makes you excited about the company? Tell me about them.
Yeah, Northwood's a great example of kind of what we are drawn to and how we try to work with companies early and try to be helpful. Not a lot of people, I don't talk about this too publicly too much, but Bridget, the CEO, actually she Twitter DM'd me about, I guess it would be like 2 years ago now.
No kidding.
Talking a little bit about, hey, I was at MIT, I'm at Harvard Law, I worked for the FCC as an intern, and I'm starting this company that's focused on space communications. And, I saw it and I was like, this is different. This is unique. And it was an area we knew a lot about from a lot of folks in our early SpaceX network. I started asking around like, hey, is this a problem? How do we think about advanced RF technology and what can be done and what's changing with constellations and, high power phased array communications and all those things and what happens. So it was a little bit from a sector perspective, we felt like we had a bit of an angle. And then when you had a chance to meet Bridget, she just had an exceptional backstory, exceptionally curious, really hard driving, understands what talent means given her track record. And for those who don't know, Bridget, CEO of Northwood, has run that business, scaled it to 45 people full time, wow. Raised a seed from Founders Fund in Andreessen, wow. A from Andreessen and Alpine Space.
When did you come in?
We were the first check into Northwood
wow.
in September of 23. So we were the first check in, and then brought in a few friends after us and kind of doubled down again. And then we doubled down again at the A and continued to invest in that business. But Bridget really has been a talent magnet. She's a well-known name that can kind of speak to the importance of space and do what we look for in a lot of our outperforming hard tech businesses. How do you build a brand? How do you build an identity around what it is that you're doing? Building a technology is not enough. You need to be able to hire. You need to be able to raise capital. You need to be able to tell your story. And she's exceptional at all those things while also being cognizant of the details of actually building the business and the technology as well. So definitely a unique talent. And Griff, the CTO, who has done a lot with RF technology and Shar, who built a lot of the ground station infrastructure for a company called Capella Space, which was recently acquired for $200 million. It's just a really unique founding team and founding story. And we were able to kind of bring them into our network pretty quickly early on, and they fit like a glove. And all of our folks, whether it's Varda or Radiant or K2, immediately took to them. And it's been a rocket ship with them for the last 2 years for sure.
Amazing. I mean, let me just play this back. She reaches out to you on X. Was it the first meeting? Was it a Zoom? Was it in person? Did you leave the first meeting figuring out like, okay, how do I get as much ownership as humanly possible here? Like, I'm definitely back. Was it a process? What did that look like?
Yeah. I actually forget the exact details, but it was either one call or two calls where it was me talking to Bridge and Griff and Shar, and then brought in some of the folks on our network that are experts around some of this communication stuff, that really know their stuff, spend time at SpaceX, like know what SpaceX is doing, really understood what they were doing on the advanced RF side. And, collectively we said, hey, like this is a smart opportunity here. We should really back this team early, and there could be a big company to be built. So I think we went from first meeting to first check in a week. I want to say maybe 5 days, something like that, pretty quick. And at that time, candidly, we were raising our first fund and deploying at the same time. So that happened like 2 weeks after our first close on our first fund. So we took about, we'll talk about this a little later, I'm sure, when it comes down to like concentration. We called 20% of our first close, and we put about half of that first call into Northwood.
Incredible.
So like tons of conviction from day one there, and then just continued to kind of lean into that as we went.
We are going to hit on concentration here in a little bit, but zooming out, since we're talking about also capital, first check, is this ideal bullseye sweet spot for you from a stage standpoint? Where do you typically, do you go up to seed, or from a stage standpoint, early as possible, pre-idea? What does that typically look like?
Yeah, it's funny. I tweeted earlier today, I said, what should I yap about on this podcast today? And somebody commented, you should talk about this concept of origination. And a friend of mine Will Menitis, he was on a podcast. I want to say it was like OpenLP or something like that. And he was talking.
I feel like he's hilarious.
He's a funny guy, super smart. I look up to him a lot. And he was talking about how like merchant banking is like the actual natural right capital to be putting to work. Instead of large venture funds. And I thought it was an interesting idea. It's really cool. And if you the next step for that, how we think about it, that's adjacent to it, is we think about ourselves really as like originating deals. I don't have a huge fund that can fund companies all the way through to public markets.
Sure.
So we naturally have to think about how do we demonstrate great taste in people, time markets and themes well, and shape opportunities in partnership with founders to get them the top partners that they can, sized appropriately at the right time for their business. And that does take work. But you can only, you got to find the right people to be able to do that really well. So what we really try to do when we think about this idea of origination, it's not pre-seed, it's seed. I mean, stage wise, people would bucket it as pre-seed or seed.
Yep.
But the mindset is very much, these things are 10-year journeys. Our job is to build the most exceptional team we can. And what we've found, what our data suggests, is that when we build a top tier team, the next series of dominoes tend to fall, but it's building that early team that can take 3, 6, 9, 12 months to get right, but don't compromise on the quality of that team. And that's what we are looking for early in our companies. And we'll keep funding until we get that right team going. And Northwood's a really great example to come back to it. Their head of growth, Zach Kirstein, was an introduction we made originally.
Awesome.
He's exceptional. He helped run the space business at Palantir
Wow.
for 6 years and had tons of success there.
And when you say you connected him, this is someone that, like someone on your team or
another founder we backed that was former Palantir introduced me to Zach at one point. And then I was talking to Zach about Northwood and I said, hey, you should consider chatting with them. We're seeding this business. I think they could use somebody like you. And the two chatted and they kind of hit it off.
Incredible.
We were able to kind of bring people together and do a 1 + 1 = 3 kind of thing. Obviously the founding team was the real sell. We were the source of an introduction, but I think that's where we try to add a lot of value, is give market perspective, because we do look at deals day in and day out, and we look at deals that are raising follow-on, and we can provide that market perspective, and also breadth of access across areas, and where we can cross talent over into other opportunities that we believe in.
Yep.
And we can kind of confer our brand and credibility to founders that may be first-time founders or may not know certain people and certain domain experts. If we can bridge those people over, that's where there's a lot of opportunity to kind of help build those early teams, almost like a talent scout. It's funny, it's your business, Alex, right?
Yeah.
It's very much how I think about what our job is in the first 12 months of the company.
It's really interesting, and I see a ton of parallels between venture and exec and retained search as well. You see this trend. I feel like if there's not an incubation component to your fund strategy already and you're playing early, a lot of folks are trying to bake something in on the incubation side. One, what you just described to me sounds like you take a founder on, you're going all in, trying to help them land the best talent for their founding team, offering all of the network that comes with all of your time spent in the sector. From a value add standpoint, if I'm a founder thinking about who I should take the first check from, what should I expect out of Also Capital if I go with you? And then I'm curious, do you guys do any incubation? How do you think about that as a part of a fund?
Yeah. The way we articulate how we invest is, founders have needs that evolve. They have needs when they come to you potentially, and they may also have needs throughout the company lifecycle, and that changes. So I'm not dogmatic about I need to be involved.
Yep.
I can write a check and get out of the way, or I can be more engaged in the early days of shaping the opportunity. It's not building the business for the founder. It's not telling them what decisions to make. I actually think about it more of like, I think it's Keith Raboy has like this, or somebody at some point has this like secrets mysteries framework where like you kind of want to pay for people that have secrets, but you get paid for solving mysteries. That's very much how I think about the role that I try to play early on. Is I'm not trying to tell the founder how to be a founder. I'm not trying to tell them, how to do X, Y, or Z, but I may have certain secrets that can dramatically accelerate what they're doing, which could include things like, hey, this other company just told this story to raise this round. If you go out and try to tell that story, you're going to look like them. we should probably position that a little bit differently. They don't have that information. Doesn't mean they're not great, but that information helps change how they think about positioning their company to optimize for success in a follow-on round. Or, hey, this person just went and joined over here. I think we can target this type of talent for what we are building here.
Smart.
Right. Hey, use this designer because they worked with this company and you have a similar narrative to that company. It'll save you a week because they've already heard the story and there's a version of it that you can tell within your vertical that would map to it. You just save people time by extension, you save them money so they can focus on what matters, hiring great talent, getting capital from the right capital partners, and executing ruthlessly in the business.
I love it.
Now, on the incubation point, sorry, last thing I'll say there, you asked about incubation. I tend not to think about what we do as incubation. Like, it really comes back to this idea of origination where I'm trying to find interesting people off the run. We talk about backing, proven talent, but maybe unproven founders.
Interesting.
I think.
Oh, I love that.
That's how it's a very unique thing because it captures, we may back second-time founders.
Sure.
It could be founders who have not raised venture capital before, but they could have founded something historically.
Totally.
But what we won't compromise on is there a demonstration of talent somewhere at some level? Have they built a team? Have they shipped complex hardware? Have they achieved some level of success? Have they won something very meaningful? Have they proven and can they talk about in great detail the talent part of what they're looking for? You can learn how to be a founder. Some of the best founders are first-time founders.
Sure.
Right? Have never done it before.
Yep.
But the one thing I think they hadn't compromised on was that you could have seen some degree of extreme talent in something they were doing.
That's a really interesting point. I think a lot of what you were describing was, I would imagine, stemmed from your run as a founder yourself. You started Further Farms. I'm curious, can you just walk me through like a little bit of that journey? Did you always want to be a founder? Did you always want to build in that space? Like how did we land, and what's like state of the union today?
Yeah, I think, to come back to this common through line, I think it was, following my curiosities, working extremely hard, and trying my best to surround myself with exceptional people.
Amazing.
And those true norths, those values, those priorities manifested in working at a top tier Ivy League endowment, at a top family office, working and raising capital from top tier private agribusiness investors, and now having started a firm that's backed top tier founders with top tier LPs. I think that has been the thing that I've done consistently well. I wouldn't say I wanted to be a founder. I don't think that's an end state. What I think is I wanted to be part of systems that allow me to pursue my curiosity as a job and build things with other smart people. I mean, we talk about this idea, this phrase, we talk about like have fun, play to win, right? And It's important to have those two ideas together, because if you just play to win, it can very quickly not be fun. And I'm sure you've played on sports teams with people that just want to win, but don't have fun. But if you just have fun, this is capitalist America. We're here to win.
Absolutely.
Right? So have a purpose in what you're doing. The companies that we've backed that have done the best to this point have lived that have fun, play to win ethos. They don't take themselves too seriously, but they are absolutely serious people. That's kind of the thing that we are after, that I've learned throughout my time, is that if you're not having fun, you can't do your best work. If you're not doing your best work, you're not going to win big. That's the focus for us, is how do we find those people that can live that every day?
I love that. When I introduce Nucleus to folks, now I feel like I have the story mapped out, right? But I think one of the things that I say there is I was at a great firm that was very broad. We did a lot of early stage, a lot of growth stuff. And I found myself working on a lot of growth opportunities. And in search, for me, it was pre-IPO growth, not early growth, post-founder transition. So I was working with a lot of professional CEOs. And it is a different dance when you're not working with the founder on the recruiting front. And to your point about having fun, search is absolutely a Saturday job. You got to grind it out. I was finding myself, and the whole reason that I bet on myself and started Nucleus was my Saturdays started being very sluggish. I wasn't having as much fun. And I'm a weirdo who loves recruiting. So that's why one of the big reasons I started Nucleus was to work with folks like you and have fun with it.
Yeah, well, it's funny, right? I would assume, in your business, it's very much relationships.
Totally.
Right. There's a book. Every time we make an investment, we send a founder a new investment. We send a founder a book.
Same book.
Same book. All has same note for me in it. And the core idea of the book, I'll keep it secret because it's one of those things. Like if you want, you take our money if you want the secret book from me.
Totally.
The core idea behind the book is that all problems in life are relationship problems at the core. So for me, I try to really index on if there's a problem or if there's an opportunity, where's the relationship that either makes it happen or not happen? And when I get calls from founders saying, hey, I'm thinking through this thing, I say, well, who is it with? Like who are the people involved in the thing we're discussing? What is the root of the issue? Like, how do you feel about it? How do they feel about it? What are their priorities? What are your priorities? How do those line up? Where do they not line up? Because you can get caught in a trap of working the issue instead of working the people.
Interesting.
But it's working the people and understanding the people where all the magic kind of comes in my experience. But you live it every day. You have to live it every day and you have to focus on that in order to do it really well. And I'm sure you see it every time when you're recruiting or trying to place people is like understanding the people, not the role, is where you probably have your best success.
I don't think I've heard an investor say that. I think you're exactly how I think. That's really cool. That's your mindset. I want to talk about some of the deals that you've been involved with, be it as an angel or now through also Cap. And I'm just going to list a couple, and I'd love just like your overall reaction, because I think it's just an impressive portfolio that you've been able to put together. First, check into Radiant Nuclear. Varda Space, on the board since inception. Varda is Delian's company. Northwood Space, we talked about a little bit earlier. First check, have since raised by Founders Fund and Andreessen. And ConductorAI, we didn't talk about them yet, but I'm working in New York out of Primary co-working space, not Primary Ventures, down on Broad. And I had to find a conference room there this morning, and the only open office was ConductorAI. So thank you,
because they're at the customer selling.
Yeah, there we go.
But they know how to do really well.
But thank you to them.
Yeah,
incredible offer. But I mean, I just listed a couple of. I didn't mention K2, but I listed a handful of here. Like if we're early stage deep tech investor, like give me like a reaction of like the portfolio you've put together so far.
Yeah, look, I pinch myself sometimes when I wake up in the morning and I see some of the companies, but more importantly, the people that I get to spend time with and have part of our community and that consider me part of theirs. I think whether it's Karan and Neil from K2 or Will and Delian from Varda or Bridget Griffin-Shar from Northwood, Zach from ConductorAI. I think the good thing is I genuinely want to see those people be successful.
That's awesome.
And when the beauty of being an inception investor, originating these opportunities for downstream capital, but being an inception investor is like you're investing in the person. And there's really not much to see at that point in time from a business. So you're only underwriting the human being on the other side of the table.
Totally.
And it creates like a real connection with that person that when they have success, when you have success, they have success and vice versa. That's a special thing. And I try not to lose sight of the fact that this is a people business. You will go as far as the people you back will take you. You can't operate a business day to day, especially when you're at the stage that I'm investing. So I have to bet on horses at the end of the day.
Yep.
But more importantly, if you want to be in venture for a long time, you have to have multiple successes. You have to have your successes pull you up into increased relevance to continue to grow as a firm and be able to have a greater and greater impact over time. But for us, it's very much like, who are the people in our network where we feel like we have a right to win, where we feel like we can add value that align with our values and our ethos and what we're doing. And we try to back them like aggressively. And it's an implicit bet that we think we're in this cluster of talent. That is where some of the next generation of great technology innovation will come from in the hard tech world. So we should be doubling down on those people. But make no mistake, I mean, the founders do the work, right? They do the work, and they hire the teams, and they have the hard compensation conversations, and they're dealing with data rooms for diligence for follow-on investing. I'm there to help as needed. I'm there to take the late night phone call when there's a question. I'm there to help provide color and context to try to give them information to help them go better, faster, further. But at the end of the day, we only go as far as those types of people.
Totally. I think the Gundo community has built just like a great community, right? I feel like you guys root for each other. I feel like everyone's on X and Venture, but definitely, I don't want to say noisy, except maybe it's just because I follow all of you guys. But you're all like very positive, feel like genuinely rooting for one another on the company side, but even the investor side. I've met a ton of other emerging managers this year, and always ask for like, hey, what other emerging managers should I know about, should be on my radar? You've come up multiple times, and I try to always let you know when I do hear about you. I think the last time was Robbie at MTF, singing your praises. So I think that's really cool. For the underwriting the people, I'm genuinely interested, because they're right. There's not a lot to underwrite on the business beyond like the sector and like, market, TAM, like all that kind of stuff. What do you look for when you're underwriting the people? Like, and I'm curious, like, are you tearing up their X to see, like, did they have any like drunk replies at 1 a.m. that was like, oh, God, like, what are we looking at on that? What are we looking for?
Yeah. So look, I've been doing this like people underwriting thing for over a decade now. To talk a little bit about my allocator experience from Cornell.
Mm-hmm.
I did most of my time investing in private equity and venture funds. I kind of did a mix of other things. So I got exposure to real estate and resources and private credit, which is good perspective to an investor, especially in hard tech. But when you're investing in funds, you're kind of investing in this promise that the manager is going to do something in the range of what they said from a strategy, but you have no idea what companies, you have no idea what prices they're going to pay. You have no idea how long it's going to take. You have no idea how long to get your money back. So it is the purest form of betting on a person and having trust and building a relationship that they're going to do what they said they're going to do, and trying to underwrite their track record, both quantitatively, but more importantly, qualitatively, their networks. I mean, we would do tons of reference calls. 15, 20, 25 reference calls.
Who are those people?
Everything. I mean, we would talk to their co-investors. We would talk to founders in their portfolio. We would talk to, sometimes, a person who wrote an angel check into their portfolio to the company they started 10 years prior. You would try to find these off-list references and try to get a complete picture of who the manager was.
Love it.
And I think you learn how to do that work. And that experience trickles through to how I underwrite founders when I invest at inception. So for us, when we meet somebody and they're like, okay, well, we need a decision tomorrow. We've never heard of them. We have no connection. I'm open to cold emails. Northwood was a cold email, right? And Drenum, one of our other companies, first round did the seed about a year after we did the inception round. Like, that was a cold email. But we spent almost 9 months getting to know Andrenum before we invested.
Wow.
Northwood is a bit of an exception, but we were able to reference one of the founders through a friend and do that and like build some context on who they are. So for us, like, it's really about what is the track record, because it's the one thing that somebody can't change, right? What they did, what they worked on, that is their work product. Now, I don't need 30 years of track record.
Yep.
But there is a bit of a sweet spot where it's like, hey, can you talk to me about something that you owned? Can you get into great detail on what you owned about it? Was there a team that you worked on? Did you help build the team? How did you manage the team? What were some challenges in doing that? And talking through those experiences, because those are, making mistakes in those things are really what kill companies.
Yep.
It's generally not like failure in technological development. That's actually a symptom of poor execution on team building and culture building.
Totally.
So we really try to understand in these founders that we're backing, what is it about them that makes it a talent magnet
Interesting.
We have this phrase that we've started using. It's like, hey, we really want to understand, like, is this a founder that people would follow into a burning building?
Interesting. Smart.
When you think about that archetype, like, you probably can think of people that it's like, yes, I would. It's a person who leads from the front. It's a person who has fear, but moves forward with conviction in spite of that fear, right? It's a person who serves others as their primary motivation, right? That type of archetype is rare.
Totally.
And you can test for it. You can ask for examples. You can try to find people in their network that can speak to how that person operates in times of trial. These are the types of things we're really trying to get at in founders, because they're the things that are very hard to change once you're in the arena.
Fascinating. I love how you think about that. I want to get to some fundraising and some just how you think about LP composition. And I think, certainly a tough climate right now. So any like nuggets of wisdom for other managers as they start raising their first or second fund. But quickly before leaving also, so how do you think about board seats? I'd imagine that like I see some of the smartest AI researchers and engineers saying, gosh, like I'm really excited about hard tech. I'm really thinking about making this move into hard tech. I'd imagine like as an investor early, you want to help you want to be in the room, right? You want to be in the room. You want to help steer the ship a little bit. Do you try to take board seats? How do you think about just the board along with the investing at that stage?
Yeah. It's funny. I was, there's this idea of trust.
Yep.
In building companies, especially at the early stage. It's like so important. And it's funny. I feel like as venture has scaled, in order to deploy more dollars faster, you tend to lean more on legal documents to provide kind of the protection that is kind of a substitute for the handshake of trust that Don Valentine might have had in addition to his legal documents.
Yep.
When he was doing deals in the 1970s.
Yep.
But my friend Adam Draper, who wrote a piece, like a blog post on like simple deals, I think, and we were texting about it this morning. I said, like, I love this piece. And it was basically the idea that it's like, just keep deals simple. The minute they get too complex, you're actually compensating for other issues in the deal.
Interesting.
And, I'd said to him, I said, one of the things, like I always say, like, structure is compensation for lack of alignment.
Interesting.
What I have found is if I need a board seat in order to get information, probably a trust issue with the founder.
Interesting.
And I know things can evolve. And when you're leading Series A's and B's, you certainly get your legal rights. You want to make sure you have that because founders can change and whatnot. But generally where we're investing, where we're writing, $1 million, $1.5 million checks early, and then we're not leading the next round, we're not taking board seats. I rely a lot more on my reputation, on my helpfulness, on our ability to kind of navigate some situations with these companies as they evolve, on our relationship with follow-on investors, almost like a Switzerland of sorts, to get the information we need in some of these companies. Now, over time, that may change, right? If we scale, you may want a board seat. It's just a standard thing. But I've seen very big firms that have a policy they don't take board seats. In some situations, they may be board observers.
Yep.
But I don't need to go to a board meeting to get information. Even Varda, the one board that I'm on right now.
Yep.
I'm just grateful to support Will and Delian and the vision that they've put together. And, when asked, be a person that contributes in that seat and in that room every quarter and be engaged and try to help support growing the business. But it's their business, right? They run it. Like, I'm not there to protect my investment. I'm there to help build a really big generational company and serve them that as needed and serve the company.
Amazing. I'm rooting for Varda just as much as any other company out there. I'm a massive fan. I want to talk a little bit about LP and like your fundraising for your own fund one, and just like more about how, less specific on you, more about like how you're thinking about this approach. But I will call out, I think that I've talked to 50 to 75 emerging managers in the last 3 to 6 months, and what I'm asking them is, I joke that Ramp has the CFO, Nucleus has the emerging manager, right? Beyond Search, we've been trying to put out different initiatives that will add real value to the emerging manager community. One of the through lines on frustrations from talking to folks like you were all around fundraising, all around Fund One, all around LPs said they had real appetite to invest in me out of Fund One. After the call, it was clear as day. There was no real appetite. They wanted to, establish the relationship, hopefully get the Fund 4 allocation down the line, right? And this was everyone. It was almost incredible. And for you, we were talking a little bit earlier, I think where a lot of them netted out on LP composition, a lot of high net worth individuals, maybe an anchor from a multi-stage, top tier firm who wants that deal flow or has a lot of conviction in this person as a manager. Not very institutional in nature, typically at the Fund One. For you, top endowments and foundations, I believe, were anchors on your Fund One. Mike, can you again, don't mention who they are, but how did you approach that? And I feel like today that's honestly, it's just really impressive to get them involved.
Yeah. Thank you, Alex. Appreciate you saying that. Incredibly grateful for the support of the investors that we've had to this point. I think one of the interesting things about venture as it's evolved over the last decade is the LP community saying, okay, as platforms get bigger, it gets harder to kind of deliver multiples of TBPI that people that were early in the asset class in the 70s and 80s experience, and many in the 90s and early 2000s experience. Where does that live? And I think they realize, it does live largely in smaller funds. So how do you actually access smaller funds systematically? And it's been very fascinating to see some forward-thinking institutions that are putting in the sweat equity to build out programs internally that are aimed at, let's call it they're aimed at outperforming, right?
Totally.
It's funny. I think they call it an emerging manager program, but what it really should be called is an outperformance program, an alpha program.
Love it.
Venture alpha program. That's what I would advocate for, is do away with emerging managers, venture alpha, right? And it's more risk, more reward. And I think it would be more intentional to emerging managers that, hey, if you're going to go try to raise institutional LP capital, we need to promise them something more than they can get elsewhere with
Totally.
More established, exceptional names of partners, whether it's the Sequoias, the Andreessens, or Caffeinateds, or Founders Funds of the world, like so many others that we work with, great, amazing names that are going to continue to deliver great returns. But there are some people out there that have appetite to take a swing at, how do I get to a 10x fund again? How do I find 10x funds? And I don't know if we'll get there. I'm cautiously optimistic.
You're going to get there, Mike.
But we're set up, and we're very intentional about how we structured our strategy, how we stayed focused on where we think we have an edge, how we thought long term about what we were going to do over multiple fund vintages. And what I like to say is, build a firm, not a fund. We focus very intently on that. I think that's a big learning from my LP days. Build a firm, not a fund, and be patient and long term thinking. For us, it was never about let's go raise a fund. It was, I'm going to leave my fast growing great company that we were building and go focus on building a new firm, a new company, and also capital full time, because I saw a once in a lifetime opportunity to build a generational firm, given everything that was happening in the market and where we were positioned. And I think that confidence and conviction and long term thinking and patience played out. So that's kind of how I think we got to where we got to. A lot of hard work, a lot of meetings, a lot of late nights, a lot of airplanes, and a lot of belief. I mean, people taking a Fund One bet, is a lot of belief to be able to do that. And my goal is to make them look really smart.
I love it. And that Fund One, it was a $22 million Fund One that was raised in 2019.
No, so we started investing it also in 2019 through kind of angels and SPVs.
Yep.
That was a 23 vintage fund.
Okay, so that was a 23 vintage fund. And I think I remember when we were speaking on that, of the 14 investments, we have 100% Series A conversion rate within 4 years.
So across our portfolio, we have 100% Series A conversion rate within 4 years for the pre-fund stuff.
Wow.
And so far, our first 2 investments out of the 14 have already raised Series A's.
Incredible.
One of those is Northwood. The other one's unannounced, but tracking really well. And I think, that's not going to stay 100% forever. But I do think one of our North Stars is, how do we get to 2x the benchmark, the industry benchmark on Series A conversion? If we're doing that, that means we're consistently a great signal. We're finding really great founders. We're backing sufficiently ambitious ideas at inception.
Yep.
And those companies are executing ruthlessly. So I think we have had, in the last 9 months, we've had 6 companies raise $90 million of follow-on capital.
Wow.
Where we were the first check in all of those companies.
Holy cow. And you're involved, like for each company, you're very plugged in with the broader venture landscape, and based on the founder, maybe personality, maybe like subsector within hard tech or customers that they're selling into, you have like a mental model of like a little short list that you'd like to introduce them to. Do you help out with fundraising?
I think a lot of times these founders like have some relationships already. I think where we can help is just kind of avoiding some landmines. Like, hey, tweak the story here. Because this other company is raising there. Like, hey, this person that maybe you haven't met could be a really great partner for you. We really enjoy working with them. Let us make a warm introduction to that partner. And just helping those founders really understand where the market is for what they're building. I believe very strongly that when you're raising a round of capital, you really should talk to multiple partners. Because if you're doing anything sufficiently ambitious, you need to understand the market's view on what you're doing. Your own view doesn't matter. Your vision should be uncompromising, but you also need to be responsive to the market's perception of where you are and how you're telling the story. And you don't get that intelligence unless you go run a process. If you talk to 2 people, 3 people, you don't get the aggregate market intelligence. And if you're going to get to IPO, eventually you have to move the market from this non-consensus idea to a consensus idea to unlock the capital flows that will get you to a big return and build a really big company. So at every opportunity, the opportunity to fundraise is a gift because it's an opportunity to test the market and get feedback on your idea and your business and where you are. And if you give that up, that's a big thing that you're leaving to chance.
Interesting. I haven't thought of it like that. I'm curious for your take on this. So founders have venture capitalists, have investors. I think different flavors, right? Maybe Andreessen led your Series A, and now you have access to this, 20-person recruiting organization that'll help you with recruiting efforts. Or I think BCV and Andreessen are really kind of the gold standard on the platform side. Maybe, I know the astronomer debacle, right? I know it was a team effort, but BCV was able to pull in their comms brand operating partner into the mix, right? So those are value adds the founder gets by letting them invest. When we look at LPs backing GPs like you, is there a benefit of is there a benefit of going with a family office versus the Yale endowment? Like, are there any value adds from having different LPs? Do they bring anything to the table?
I think the number one thing that one should want when they're building a firm is LPs with values aligned to the firm they're trying to build and the fund strategy they're trying to execute. I think all of our LPs to a T understand the strategy we're running. They understand the risk. They understand our edge, and they're bought in to the insight we have at Also and view of the world around this hard tech opportunity set and where our box is, and they can articulate it, right? It's explained simply so they can say, here's what Mike does. Here's why Mike is great. Here's why he has a really good chance to win. And you want LPs that are bought into that. That's the number one goal, whether they're high net worth, which we have, whether they're former SpaceX engineers, which we have, whether they're endowments or foundations, which we have, or fund of funds, which we have. It doesn't really matter, but I could tell you most of my LPs I can text with and
awesome
chat through things, and they can ask me questions, and we build a real relationship. And I think you can't downplay the importance early on, Fund 1, Fund 2, of building real relationships with LPs, with your LPs, setting expectations, what you're going to do, and then exceeding those expectations. Demonstrating that softer thing, that intangible, that you can do that consistently is really important as you continue to grow the firm, because even if you're going to be top decile, it's going to take 10 years for that to really show. So all you have at the end of the day is your word.
Totally.
And the expectations you set and how you deliver against those expectations. So take every opportunity to do that kind of thing.
I love it. You had talked about building the firm. For Also, Have a first hire, an analyst joined you, Brandis.
Yes.
Tell me about Brandis. What made him first hire? Her.
So first hire, first full-time hire.
Amazing.
She joins Andrea, who's my EA, who's kind of been working with me for 2 years. She's amazing, does like EA ops stuff. And if anybody's set meetings with me, they've had a chance to meet Andrea. So I want to make sure I shout her out. But, Andrea and Brandis are the team now. Brandis is on the investment team with me, very much in an apprenticeship model where kind of young, hungry, works really hard, but more importantly, low ego, humble. And I had the privilege of working with her on our scout team over the summer.
Oh.
So shout out to Leo Polovitz, who is the one from Humba Ventures, who we love working with. And he introduced me to Brandis, who sent him a cold email. So sent him a cold email, and then he said, "Hey, she seems great. You should meet her." I met her, and I offered her a seat on the scout team for the summer. So she started working with us in May, and then I effectively promoted her to full-time about 2 weeks ago now. And it's been really great. I think she's fast learner, super curious. Everything
Amazing.
In our network we've introduced her to, most importantly, has like really enjoyed getting to know her. I think she's got a really bright future.
Amazing. Congrats on the first hire.
Thank you.
That's a really big one. I think it's really smart that you did with the scout program. So is this like a formalized scout program that you rolled out at also? Like how many folks?
Yeah, it is. It's funny. It's actually an interesting story. So as you know, Alex, I yap on Twitter and LinkedIn.
I think you're a great yapper.
I'm a great yapper. My wife would say the same thing. I'm a great yapper. So last spring, spring of 24, I had this idea. I said, hey, we should really start seeding the network with like next gen talent.
Totally.
And how do I do that? Well, maybe I can get an intern that can come carry a bag for me for the summer. It'd be a good way to, so I posted on LinkedIn and said, hey, looking to hire an intern for the summer. Come carry a bag for me, learn, looking for low ego,
Yep.
Humility, all these things. And somehow the post went completely viral. I had an application in the link. I ended up with, it had like 1,000, 2,000 likes or something, like 50 reshares. I got 700 applications.
Holy cow.
In 4 days.
Wow.
For an intern position.
Incredible.
And going through it, I was like, all right, how do I even approach this? How do I even pick one out of 700? So, the premise of this was, seeding the network with great talent relationships. I think I want to hire more than one of these people because there's a bunch of really great people. And I said, well, what do I do? Like, I can't compromise on the quality of the experience for these people for the summer. They only have one summer. So what do I do? I was fortunate to have worked with Dorm Room Fund, which was started by First Round Capital. And,
Yep.
Was a student investor there. So understood the power of like students having check writing capability.
Totally.
And how they could really outperform your expectations if you give like high agency, high slope people like that check writing ability. And then I also had the good fortune of scouting for Ray Tonsing and Varun Gupta Caffeinated as part of their Caffeinated Collective program in 2022. Similar kind of setup where it's like, hey, authority to write checks. I said, what if I just did a scout fund?
Interesting.
And I hired really high agency people, said, hey, your job is find deals and do deals. And I'll give you $100,000 out of the fund. And you can write 4 to 5 checks of 20 to 25K.
Interesting.
Here's the constraints and go do it. And oh, by the way, I'm going to give you all the carry on that 100K. So if it's an 11X fund, you guys will get $200,000 to carry, split amongst you for 8 weeks of work in the summer. And if you hire the right people, it's amazing what they can achieve and the platform that it can serve. So we had a lot of success, hired 4 people. One of the scouts, we actually just from last summer, came back to be managing partner on our scout fund this summer. And we just backed his company that he's starting out of the fund as like a core position. Brandis was this summer on the scout team. She's now hired full time. Another one of the scouts from last summer is now head of go to market at a Sequoia Series B company. We have another one who is the youngest to ever row an ocean from last summer. And then he came and spoke at our AGM.
Wow.
Max, very incredible experience. So we've just been very blessed with like very great people that I think are attracted to this core idea of like solving hard problems with high conviction. Like that's where the greatest opportunity is. And we want to find people that are going to be part of that. And we've got I'll tease it, but we have a very cool person who's going to be interning with us this fall, working on some content stuff. A former Rhodes Scholar who's going to be working on some stuff in the tech world, who's very cool. So I'm excited to share more about that in a couple of weeks. But we want to really find these exceptional outlier people and just try to be a platform for their success.
I love it. I speaking of exceptional outlier people, shout out to Reed, who joined my team as an intern earlier this summer. I started putting these graphics out, and it was one of those things where I started Nucleus. We just made the turn into year 2, and at like the top of my Asana to-do list, I had like start posting on X, put graphics together. Yes. And it just like kept getting deprioritized, right? Like a search would come in, the candidate update, whatnot. But finally I had Reed come in, probably like 4 or 5 months ago at this point. At first we were just doing research, but he made this comment that he loves like data visualizations. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, I've been trying to do this graphic thing for a long time, and I'd give him some guardrails. And he's so smart. He's so like genuinely curious, where he does excellent research and he knocks it out of the park. So he's been putting these like great content together, and he's staying on in more of like a part-time capacity, but he was one that I couldn't let him go.
Graphics are great, by the way. Those graphics are great. So shout out to Reed, because things are really great, really thoughtful. I really enjoy reading those and like seeing what he's put together.
Reed, there we go, man. Yeah. This is what I'm saying.
Work, Reed.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious, not a lot of like hard tech, I would imagine, in New York City proper, right? You mentioned you're in Gundo once a quarter, but the cadence is like pretty frequent, I'd imagine. Why New York for also capital?
Yeah, I think, ultimately, like, our job in venture is like source great companies, like pick great companies, win meaningful allocation of those companies, and help add value. The world is very distributed, very these days.
Yeah.
One of the greatest sins a venture investor can have is being too involved in a company. So being in New York, like out of the echo chamber, we get to be very independent of thought on some of that. We have very good coverage in LA. We've got a couple of venture partners that are out there in LA full time. A bunch of our LPs that are strategic trusts are out there full time. A bunch of our founders are out there, and awesome. We're grateful that they tend to kind of keep us in the loop on things that they're seeing from time to time. You have some systems and processes to keep an eye on different companies that may be spinning out. Selfishly, my family's here in New York, and grew up in New York. And
where'd you grow up?
On Long Island. So I grew up out.
Where in Long Island?
Huntington.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to Greenport.
Oh, nice. Enjoy.
Thank you. Thank you.
But family's here, and we've got it. We do have a couple companies in New York. Funny enough, both of them are, actually 3 of them now are all AI companies that are doing really well. So
shocker.
But all with like a foundational industries kind of bend to how they're applying AI.
Awesome.
Or government and bend to how they're applying AI. But there's a couple of those in New York. So yeah.
Amazing. I gonna move to a rapid fire with you.
Yeah, let's do it.
The first one I have here is around the founder.
Okay.
I know this could go, you probably have dozens of these, but if you had to call out one, who in a flash you would back again, right? Let's say they just sold the company, took a little 6-month hiatus. Now we're starting another company, text you, Mike, are you in? Like, who are you jumping up and down about in that scenario?
Look, I'm heavily biased. We've known each other a long time, but I think I like to joke, if Will Brew was starting a lemonade stand, I would write him a check. But we've been good friends for a long time, and he's just done an exceptional job with Varda, which is actually not even his first company. He started one of the most successful engineering service firms as well that spun out of SpaceX.
Wow.
That not a lot of people have heard about, but
interesting.
Maybe he'll tell that story on a podcast one day. But I think the other one it just has to be Doug Bernauer. I wish I had more capital to put to work in 2020 when we wrote him that first check. But
and Doug is at which company?
Doug's CEO of Radiant.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Just like the vision and the execution and the culture building and the intensity, balancing between all of those things and being a unique talent in doing them. Doug's a guy who was trying to think about agriculture on Mars, plowed up his front yard to try to figure out, what he could learn from farming his front yard that he could apply to doing farming on Mars when he was working at SpaceX, right? That kind of intensity and clarity of mission and mission focus. Doug always likes to say, like, it's about the mission, not the man.
I don't know Doug, but I love Doug. I love people like that. What about, you don't have to maybe mention them by name, you can describe them if that's okay. But like one LP who's made like a real impact in the Also story so far.
Yeah. I think there's two, I'll give you two because they serve different functions. A very good friend of mine who I've known for over a decade, and we kind of like came up together having a lot of fun, doing interesting things, had a lot of success. He wrote me my biggest check in my first close.
Oh, wow.
Largely a bet on me. Introduced me to folks, kind of helped catalyze some other interesting things, and was very gracious in doing it. Just wanted to help me be successful.
Awesome.
And everybody has the one or two of those people, I think, that helps put them in business. And I'm just very grateful for that. And then, call it 6 months later, 9 months later, whatever it was, the top tier US endowment that really kind of took a bet on us and anchored a chunk of the fund and kind of helped catalyze a bunch of other people over, emphatic reference. For us, I think very grateful for their support and belief in what we're doing. And hope is we'll continue to make them look hopefully smart in the years to come for taking that risk on us. But I think a lot of people, long list of people to be grateful for that have supported what we're doing. Our venture partners, individual LPs, all of our SpaceX engineers, a couple of the fund of funds that have backed us, foundations that have backed us. But I think those two were like moments of, kind of emphasis.
I love it. And I've started building out, we're curating an LP network with LPs that have actually backed an emerging manager at a fund 1 or a fund 2 in the last 12 to 18 months. And the way that we've started curating is asking folks like you that same question. So the people in it checks 2 boxes, right? Like first, they actually wrote a check into a fund 1 or a fund 2. Second, they're not an asshole. You're very happy to have them in the LPAC, right? And that's the community we're trying to build up.
Yes.
Curious, when you look at hard tech, what is one hard tech company outside of your portfolio that you really admire?
It's probably got to be Impulse. Yeah, I think Tom Mueller is obviously an inspiration to everybody in aerospace for his work that he did with SpaceX. But the thing I most admire about Impulse is just the talent density they've been able to put together over a number of years. Move quickly, beat early to an idea of, orbit raising technology is like very, 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 forward thinking, if you will. So just a lot of respect for Impulse and what they're doing.
Totally. All right. Stay with me here.
Yeah.
The year is 2035. Also capital. What kind of firm are we? Are we a multi-stage generalist firm? Are we a early stage focused deep tech firm? Do we have 15 investors? What does that look like for you?
It's a great question. When we had our AGM earlier this year, and made a couple points around some of our core beliefs that we have as a firm. And one of the core beliefs that we have that I articulated at the annual meeting is the best hard tech VCs will look more like Sutter Hill than they will YC.
Interesting.
And that's built on the belief that the best hard tech companies are built, not discovered. So in hard tech, in this category, it's not really a search problem. It's actually like a capital agglomeration problem. How do you build enough capital on the balance sheet in advance of revenue to go almost reflexively manifest big opportunities? So if you're going to sell to the government, you kind of got to make a statement to the government that you'll deliver. And one of the easiest ways to do that, aside from having a great team, is to show that you're capitalized well. And that's a big opportunity, right? So the way we think about firm building, the way I think about firm building is, number one, you earn the right to build a firm by continued delivery of exceptional returns, unique access to founders, developing great investment talent. If you do those things well, you can continue to grow, but you don't grow just to grow, right? I often say right now we do about 15 companies per fund at inception. There's a world where the actual right number of companies we back is like 8, but we do 5 times the capital in those 8 companies kind of over multiple rounds. And because I think if you talk to some of the more sophisticated top performing venture managers, they'll tell you like there's really not that many exceptional entrepreneurs that come around every year, every couple years. So when you find one, you try to back up the truck. We want to seed, put people in business, help them get going. But I think over time, we probably concentrate more capital into fewer names, and that could be bigger dollars. The exact structure of how I get there, I don't really care. What I want to do is just, have more stake in the economic performance of our network over time as our network grows and becomes more credible and becomes better known and those kinds of things.
I love it. I have selfish corner time.
Yeah.
So I mentioned earlier, I always like to ask emerging managers what other emerging managers they're really excited about right now. Who's out there in the universe that's an emerging manager deploying out of fund 1, 2, or 3 that you're following, you're excited about?
So let me answer that question this way. I will just go based on data. The data of who, like emerging managers that we have worked with most frequently, I think the 2 people we've worked with, the couple people we've worked with the most, Leo Polovitz at Humba, who's obviously an established GP from SUSE, but what he's doing at Humba is more emerging in nature.
Yep.
Heston Berkman at Banter Capital, who we work with a bunch. Less emerging at this point, but who we like, Boost VC, Adam Draper, we've done a bunch of stuff with them. Trying to think other folks that would be very relevant that we've actually worked with. I think those are like the names that we most often cross over with at the seed. So it doesn't, a lot of folks we like working with as well, but those are the names I think we've worked with most frequently in our portfolio. And I think if I think about those names, that the companies that have come out of that collaboration, those names are Radiant, Varda, K2, AnySignal, Andrenum, and Northwood.
That's a great group.
Yeah.
That's a great freaking group.
Yeah.
Last question.
Yeah.
As I think about like the next guest for the pod, I ideally want to bring folks in you've dropped some great nuggets today that I think other emerging managers can really learn from your experience and kind of run with. Who do you think would be a great person to try to see if they can come on the pod? Could be an LP, could be another emerging manager, maybe a more established manager, an investor. Like, who do you think would make for a great podcast guest that would drop great nuggets of wisdom for emerging managers out there?
Good friends of mine, I think, like really know what they're doing in venture, is the Calibri Equity team. It's a family office. It has a lot of emerging managers now. James Bananzuri. Yeah. Cool. I don't know if they would come on the podcast, but they back emerging managers.
Awesome.
They do co-invest. They're smart investors as well. Like, I think it'd be really cool to have those guys on the LP side. And I'm trying to think like on the talent side, that could be interesting too. Will's always a fun guest to have on from Varda. If you could ever get Will to come on and talk, I'm sure he would be a blast to have on, for sure. And then I'm trying to think who else is a lot of fun. That would be good. Yeah, I think those are 2 names. If you get Will, if you can get the Calibri guys, Sam Koken's pretty fun too from Sandwich Capital.
Oh, cool.
He's a fund of fund that's invested with us. He does a bunch of directs and LP checks, and he's had like pretty good. I mean, obviously I'm biased, but he's also invested in a bunch of other good funds that I respect. So I think he could be an interesting person who has direct experience, but then now running a fund of fund with a very interesting strategy, and it's like interesting taste in GPs that he's backed. So I think those folks are interesting to have on. Finn from Nebular. I don't know if you've ever met Finn.
No.
Finn would be a good emerging manager to have come on. Irish guy who's had a ton of success in his track record. His first fund was 30 million. I really enjoy him. He's a really good time. So I think Finn would be really good too from the emerging manager side.
Incredible. All right, Finn, Sam, Will, you're confirmed. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Mike, thanks so much for making it happen on short notice, and we'll catch up. We'll catch up soon, I hope.
Thanks for having me, Alex.
Thank you, brother.
You got it.